Carl Jung revealed this: 5 secret marks of women with unshakable spiritual energy. As Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. When a woman embodies unshakable spiritual energy, her presence alone speaks louder than words or appearances. These secret marks are not about beauty or charm, but about the invisible forces that shape her aura and the way life responds to her. In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we will uncover 5 of these powerful signs and explore how you can apply these principles in your own daily life for growth, happiness, and a deeper sense of purpose. Do you recognize any of these marks within yourself or someone you know? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. 1. Quiet presence that commands attention. A spiritually powerful woman does not need to raise her voice or demand attention because her very presence speaks louder than words. Carl Jung described this kind of energy as the mana personality, an aura that carries sacred authority without effort. When she enters a room, the atmosphere shifts, not because she seeks validation or admiration, but because her spirit carries a quiet force that cannot be ignored. This is not about beauty, wealth, or charm. It is about inner battles fought in silence, resilience built in solitude, and wisdom earned through pain and transformation. She does not wear her strength as decoration. She embodies it, and others feel it instinctively. Her quiet authority is born out of nights when she wrestled with her own doubts, fears, and wounds. It comes from the seasons when she was overlooked or misunderstood, when the world gave her no applause, yet she continued to rise. Like iron forged in fire or diamonds formed under pressure, she has been shaped by struggle into someone who does not need to prove her worth. Her silence holds more power than the loudest performance. The philosopher Rumi once said, "There is a voice that doesn't use words." Listen, that voice is alive in her presence, and it commands attention in a way no act of persuasion could. People respond to her energy without understanding why. Some are drawn to her light as if they have found a rare sanctuary, while others feel unsettled, even threatened, because her authenticity exposes the masks they wear. This is the paradox of true spiritual wisdom. It attracts those who are ready to grow and repels those who fear change. And she does not mind either reaction because her self-worth does not rest on approval. Instead, she walks with the calmness of someone who knows herself, someone who has touched the depths of her soul and returned whole. This power cannot be imitated because it comes from within. It is not about mastering social performance, but about mastering the inner world. Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The spiritually intelligent woman has confronted her shadows, integrated her pain, and allowed her unconscious to become her teacher. That is why she emanates stability. Her presence is not fragmented but whole. She has turned wounds into wisdom and solitude into strength, and that is what others sense when they meet her. In her company, people feel both comfort and challenge. Comfort because her groundedness offers safety. Challenge because her quiet energy invites them to reflect on their own truth. She does not need to speak constantly to prove she has depth. Her silence says more than endless words. Every gesture, every glance, every pause is filled with meaning because it comes from a place of consciousness. She embodies what spiritual awakening looks like in human form: calm, resilient, intelligent, and deeply connected to something beyond herself. This kind of woman no longer chases recognition. She has no need to demand respect, because respect arises naturally in her presence. She does not manipulate, perform, or seek validation, because her soul has already been validated through the trials she has endured. Her aura is her testimony. Her silence is her strength, and her resilience is her crown. Those who encounter her may not understand it logically, but they will feel it unmistakably, the quiet power of a woman who has discovered her true self and walks in unshakable spiritual energy. Comment below. I embody a quiet presence that commands respect. If you recognize this spiritual power within yourself. 2. The wound that becomes wisdom. Every woman who carries unshakable spiritual energy has endured a wound so deep it forced her into a dialogue with her own soul. And that wound becomes the very foundation of her wisdom. Carl Jung's understanding of the wounded healer archetype shows us that it is not the absence of pain that makes someone strong, but the way she transforms pain into insight, empathy, and strength. A wound can be a breaking point, yet for her, it becomes a turning point, a doorway to spirituality and spiritual awakening, a place where the soul is forced to grow beyond the ordinary. She does not merely survive suffering, she learns from it, shaping her inner world in such a way that her presence itself becomes a form of guidance and healing for others. When a woman has walked through heartbreak, betrayal, loss, or loneliness, she begins to see life differently than those who have only skimmed the surface of existence. She develops the ability to feel the subtle emotions of others because she has felt them in herself. This is why people instinctively trust her and seek her counsel, because they sense she does not speak from theory or shallow optimism, but from lived truth. Jung noted that those who have faced their shadows are the ones most capable of leading others out of darkness, and this principle reveals itself in her life. Her wound no longer bleeds, it glows. It becomes a lamp she carries, illuminating paths for those still stumbling in pain. This kind of transformation does not happen suddenly. It is forged in the slow fire of experience. Her wound teaches her patience when everything around her screams for quick answers. It teaches her humility, because pain strips away illusions of control. It teaches her resilience, because to rise again after being broken is the mark of true inner power. Over time, these lessons accumulate into wisdom, and wisdom crystallizes into a spiritual presence that cannot be faked. She may not even be aware of how others perceive her, yet people are drawn to her calm, to her aura of knowing, to the sense that she has walked through the fire and can show them how to endure their own. In our modern world, where appearances and surface-level achievements are often mistaken for worth, such women carry a different kind of beauty. It is not beauty that fades, but one that deepens with time, marked by compassion, understanding, and an unshakable center. Her energy may unsettle some, because true authenticity disrupts the illusions people cling to. Yet for those who are ready, her presence becomes a mirror, reflecting both their wounds and their possibility for healing. Her life whispers a lesson many need to hear, that what hurt you most may one day serve as your greatest gift. The wound that becomes wisdom is not about denying pain, but embracing it as a teacher. It is about allowing the soul to expand rather than collapse, to rise rather than remain broken. Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." A woman who has faced her own shadows becomes unafraid of the shadows of others. She becomes a sanctuary where others feel safe to bring their truth, no matter how messy or painful. And in offering that space, she fulfills her role as a wounded healer, a living embodiment of spiritual wisdom, and a reminder that even the deepest scar can shine as a mark of awakening. Leave your likes and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss insights like this. Comment below, "My wounds are transformed into wisdom," if you believe in the power of turning pain into spiritual strength. 3. Intuition, passing feeling, but a profound inner knowing that penetrates the surface of appearances and reaches into the hidden depths of the human soul. It allows her to perceive truths that remain invisible to most, to recognize unspoken pain that lingers behind smiles, and to uncover false pretenses that people wear to protect themselves. This kind of perception is exactly what Carl Jung described when he spoke about the unconscious, the hidden dimension of the psyche that silently shapes our behaviors, desires, and fears. She does not use this power to wound or control, but instead to reveal and heal. For her presence itself becomes a mirror that reflects not only what others show, but also what they hide. When she enters a space, people often feel exposed without understanding why. Her gaze cuts through masks, her presence unsettles falsehood, and her silence speaks louder than words. Some may feel drawn to her as if pulled by an invisible force, while others feel uneasy because she sees the truths they would rather keep hidden. Yet those who embrace her perception often leave her presence feeling lighter, renewed, and transformed, as if something heavy within them has been lifted. This is because her intuition is not cold judgment, but warm compassion. It is a light that uncovers shadows, not to shame, but to invite healing. She understands, perhaps more deeply than anyone else, that every mask hides a wound and every falsehood conceals a fear. And so she offers insight not as a weapon, but as medicine. This gift does not appear out of nowhere, but grows out of deep spirituality and long spiritual development. A woman with unshakable spiritual energy has walked through valleys of hardship, faced her own shadows, and dared to confront the parts of herself that others deny. It is through this inner journey that her intuition becomes sharpened. For only someone who has faced her own hidden pain can recognize it in others. She sees not with suspicion, but with wisdom, not with pride, but with humility, because she knows that the unconscious belongs to us all. Her power is born of empathy, and her vision is shaped by love. In today's world of curated images, filters, and constant distraction, such intuition shines as a rare and necessary gift. People are constantly bombarded with illusions, showing fragments of themselves while hiding the truth of who they are. Social media, appearances, and words can deceive, but the energy of the soul cannot lie, and she is attuned to it. She perceives what is not said, senses the tension behind rehearsed smiles, and understands that connection is not about polished appearances, but about authentic presence. Her energy reminds us that real spirituality is not found in the image we project, but in the truth we embody. For you, this is not just a story of someone extraordinary, but also a lesson for your own life. Intuition is not reserved for a chosen few. It is a gift within you waiting to be cultivated. By slowing down, listening more deeply, and trusting the quiet whispers of your inner self, you begin to see beyond words and gestures into the heart of truth. Spirituality teaches that awareness itself can heal. And the more you strengthen your intuition, the more you will bring light into your own relationships and into the lives of others. Intuition is not about exposing others, but about guiding them gently toward authenticity and wholeness. What you can take with you is the understanding that intuition, when combined with compassion, becomes a force for transformation. It can dissolve illusions, free hidden pain, and remind people of who they truly are beneath the masks. To nurture your own spiritual development is to nurture this same gift, allowing you to live with clarity, connect with honesty, and help others feel seen in ways they never have before. And in that, you discover one of the deepest truths Carl Jung revealed, that to see into another's unconscious is not a burden, but a sacred act of healing. A reminder that when we look beyond the mask, we find not darkness, but the hidden seed of light. Do you trust your intuition to see beyond the masks people wear? If you do, declare it boldly in the comments. My intuition reveals the truth. 4. Relationship with solitude. She embraces solitude as a sanctuary, not as loneliness. For in the quiet, she discovers a world many overlook. Solitude becomes her temple, her sacred ground, where she hears the whispers of her soul and allows old wounds to heal in silence. It is here that she gathers her strength, where her spirit is renewed like rivers flowing underground, unseen but life-giving. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom reminds us that who looks inside awakes, and it is in this very turning inward that she awakens to her true power. While others dread silence, fearing the emptiness it might reveal, she sees it as fullness, as the fertile soil in which clarity and wisdom grow. When she chooses to step back from the noise of the world, it is not to retreat from life, but to deepen her connection to it. Solitude is not escape, it is communion. In stillness, she learns to see with the eyes of the soul, to notice what passes unseen by hurried minds, and to connect with the vast reservoir of inner wisdom that only silence can unveil. Like a tree that draws its strength from roots hidden beneath the earth, her solitude nourishes her being, anchors her spirit, and makes her unshakable in the storms of life. Others, unable to face their own reflection in silence, may project misunderstanding onto her, calling her distant or withdrawn, when in truth, she is closer than ever to the essence of life itself. The paradox of her solitude is that while it sets her apart, it also deepens her compassion. Because she has learned to sit with her own shadows, she recognizes the silent struggles in others. Because she has healed herself in silence, she offers healing presence to those who cross her path. This is not the coldness of isolation, but the warmth of someone who has walked through valleys and returned with light. Blaise Pascal once said, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And while most flee from the stillness of being, she has befriended it. That is why her energy feels so different, why some are drawn to her like moths to flame, and why others feel unsettled. For her calm presence reflects back the unrest they carry within themselves. Her solitude is not a void, but a source of power. In the silence, she clears away the noise of false voices, and what remains is authenticity, resilience, and truth. When she emerges from her inner sanctuary, her aura carries the weight of wisdom that cannot be faked. This is intelligence in its highest form, not the sharpness of calculation, but the deeper intelligence of the heart, the soul, and the spirit. It is the mark of a woman aligned with her higher calling, a woman who transforms stillness into strength and silence into radiance. For her, solitude is not an end, but a beginning. Not weakness, but the very proof of unshakable spiritual energy. Have you ever embraced solitude and found strength in it? If so, share your experience in the comments to inspire others. If not, type, "I will learn to embrace solitude," and let's walk this path of spiritual awakening together. 5. Courage to face darkness. True enlightenment, as Carl Jung wisely observed, does not come from denying darkness, but from bringing it into the light of consciousness. And this truth lies at the heart of unshakable spiritual energy. A woman of deep spirituality and spiritual awakening is not one who runs from fear, shadows, or inner chaos, but one who faces them with courage over and over again until they no longer control her. This act of integration, where she embraces both the light and the dark within herself, gives her a strength that is not fragile, but resilient, not temporary, but enduring. She becomes unbreakable because she understands that pain and chaos are not enemies to be avoided, but teachers to be acknowledged. And in this acknowledgement, she gains the power to hold her own suffering with grace and, in turn, hold the suffering of others without fear. Her energy is different because it is born of truth rather than illusion. While many people hide from their wounds, cover their insecurities, or pretend to be only light, she stands as someone who has descended into her shadows and returned transformed. That is why, when she walks into a room, the atmosphere shifts. Some are drawn to her presence as if to a flame, finding comfort in her authenticity, while others feel unsettled, even intimidated, because her courage exposes what they have not yet faced in themselves. Yet whether admired or misunderstood, her spiritual power is undeniable. Jung's reminder, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate," becomes the foundation of her life, for she no longer allows unconscious wounds to dictate her path. Instead, she transforms them into conscious wisdom, creating a destiny of her own choosing. This resilience shows itself in the practical moments of daily living. In times of crisis at work, when colleagues are anxious or overwhelmed, she is steady because she has faced greater storms within. In relationships, when a partner or friend is drowning in grief, she listens without judgment because she has walked through her own pain and knows its language. In her family, she teaches by example that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the ability to rise each time struggle comes. Her unshakable energy is not glamorous or loud. It is quiet, grounded, and magnetic, a presence that cannot be easily explained, but can always be felt. For you, the lesson is simple yet demanding. Stop fearing the shadows of your own life. Fear, anger, grief, or doubt do not make you less spiritual. They are pathways to deeper awakening if you have the courage to face them. When you deny them, you fragment yourself, but when you confront them, you become whole. Spirituality is not about putting on a mask of constant positivity, but about holding both light and dark in balance, allowing each to teach you. And as you do this, you discover that the very parts of yourself you once tried to hide become the sources of your greatest strength. To walk the path of spiritual awakening means learning to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, to face fear instead of numbing it, and to embrace pain until it turns into wisdom. The woman who lives this way is resilient, because she knows that no outer storm can destroy the peace she has built inside. She becomes capable of carrying not just her own burdens, but also supporting the weight of others, offering compassion, presence, and strength where it is needed most. And this is the mark of a soul truly awakened: the ability to transform inner darkness into light, to carry both suffering and joy with dignity, and to shine with a power that no circumstance in life can ever take away. To honor the strength it takes to face the shadows, declare your courage today. Comment below, "I walk boldly," and inspire others to embrace their own fearless journey. And so, the secret marks of women with unshakable spiritual energy remind us that true power lies not in what the world sees, but in the unseen strength of the soul. These mysteries, as Carl Jung hinted, are not about appearances. They are about presence, depth, and spirit. If this message has spoken to you, let it inspire you to honor the hidden power within yourself and others. Before you go, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs this wisdom, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Also, tap the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming videos as we continue exploring the profound truths of spirituality and inner transformation. This rare aura scares people. Only true empaths carry it. As Carl Jung once said, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Today, we explore a rare aura that not only sets true empaths apart, but also unsettles those who cannot understand its power. This energy is not a weakness, it is a sacred strength, a reminder of your spiritual awakening and inner truth. I invite you to carry these insights into your daily life, to see how embracing your authentic aura can lead to personal growth, resilience, and happiness. Do you recognize this rare energy within yourself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. And if this message resonates with you, let's continue walking this path together here on Spiritual Wisdom. 1. Your sensitivity is an adaptive survival mechanism. Your sensitivity didn't come from nowhere. It was built cell by cell, emotion by emotion, inside the chaos of emotionally unsafe environments, where reading the room wasn't a luxury, but a lifeline. You didn't just develop empathy, you developed survival-level emotional intelligence. As a child, you became hyper-attuned to micro-expressions, to the pauses between words, to the energy that shifted when someone walked in. While others played in innocence, you were busy scanning for threats, decoding silences, and managing the emotional temperature of everyone around you. That wasn't childhood intuition, it was adaptive genius. Carl Jung described this evolution of the empath as the transformation of pain into perception, suffering into spiritual wisdom, and defense into insight. What emerged from that environment wasn't just a person who feels deeply. It was someone with a psychological radar that functions on a frequency most people can't even comprehend. You didn't just learn to pick up on energy, you became the energy. Your presence doesn't just observe a space, it transforms it. You carry a rare aura, one that's been encoded with the invisible language of feeling, one that speaks louder than words ever could. And that's exactly why people don't know how to respond to you. You're not loud, but you're unmistakably present. You're not trying to expose anyone, but your existence naturally reveals what others try to hide. Your energy is a mirror, And when people aren't ready to face themselves, they flinch at their own reflection. Jung referred to this archetype as the wounded healer, not because you're broken, but because you've been cracked open and refused to harden. Your pain didn't make you bitter. It made you transparent. That transparency is magnetic, but also threatening to the facades people wear like armor. You don't just walk into a room, you shift its entire frequency. And those who have not yet healed will either cling to your light or recoil from it. They'll misinterpret your stillness as judgment, your insight as confrontation, your empathy as weakness. But what they're really reacting to is the quiet intelligence your aura emits, the kind that doesn't need words to reveal truth. You don't need to explain why crowds exhaust you, why noise feels like violence, or why certain people feel like emotional static. Your nervous system has been working overtime for decades, attuned to frequencies most never learned to detect. You are not fragile, you are finely tuned. And that tuning is the result of surviving what others could not even name. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a superhuman capacity disguised as softness. It is the reason you can feel the storm before it breaks, the lie beneath the smile, the sadness behind someone's strength. It's not overthinking, it's overfeeling. And while it costs you peace in a world that numbs, it gives you sight in a world that's blind. This is the weight and wonder of carrying a rare aura. You are not here to be liked by everyone. You are here to activate, awaken, and illuminate. People will misunderstand you, fear you, project onto you, but none of that is your burden to carry. Your only responsibility is to honor the intelligence of your own spiritual evolution, to trust the accuracy of your nervous system, and to stop apologizing for a gift that took everything in you to develop. You are not too much. You are exact. And those who are meant to walk with you will never ask you to be less. Leave a like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss content that helps you understand your rare empathic gift. Type in the comments, "I deserve to live a financially prosperous life," and embrace the power of your sensitivity as a strength, not a weakness. 2. The empathic aura as a wounded healer frequency. Carl Jung's insight into the empathic soul revealed that what many perceive as emotional fragility is in fact a rare spiritual frequency, the wounded healer aura. This energy is not born from natural goodness, but through the alchemy of suffering. True empaths have survived the fire and transformed their pain into sensitivity, awareness, and a quiet power that radiates from their presence alone. Their spirituality doesn't come from theory. It is earned through nights of silence, betrayal that didn't harden them, and heartbreak that became holy ground. They feel deeper because they've lived deeper. And what they emit is not just energy. It's a spiritual code that reaches beyond the surface into the unconscious realm of others, awakening truths they may not be ready to face. This is why being in the presence of an empath can feel like standing in front of a mirror. People sense that their masks cannot hold up under the gaze of someone who has already unraveled themselves and put the pieces back together through self-awareness. The aura of a true empath carries both comfort and confrontation. It nurtures the wounded, but it also exposes the unhealed. And while this ability to heal others can seem miraculous, it comes with a price. The empath becomes a magnet for projection, manipulation, and shadow energy from those who subconsciously seek healing without responsibility. Jung warned that those who carry this wounded healer frequency often find themselves misunderstood, isolated, or even scapegoated, not because they are wrong, but because their energy makes others confront what they've buried. In a modern world obsessed with image, performance, and emotional avoidance, the presence of an awakened empath disrupts the illusion. Their energy vibrates on a different plane, one that can't be faked or replicated. This vibration is felt in silence, in stillness, in authenticity. It doesn't beg for validation because it already knows its worth. But because so few operate on this level, the empath can feel out of place, sensing everything while others numb themselves. They may be told they're too much, when in fact, they're simply too real. And in a culture that fears depth, realness is intimidating. This is the double edge of their gift. They carry a spiritual awakening within them that can change lives. But they must also guard themselves from those who want the light without doing the work. True empaths are spiritual warriors disguised as healers. They walk through the world absorbing energies, not because they want to, but because their soul is wired to transmute darkness into clarity. And yet, they must learn to set sacred boundaries, not to block love, but to filter out distortion. The wounded healer must protect their frequency like gold, because it is gold. The more they value their own light, the less they will tolerate those who dim it. They must remember that their aura is not a burden. It is a revelation. It doesn't need to be hidden, explained, or softened. It only needs to be honored, because it is proof of everything they've survived, everything they've learned, and everything they now embody. This isn't just a gift. It's a calling written in the language of energy, one that speaks without words and heals without touch. This is the essence of spiritual wisdom. Have you ever felt like your presence alone brings comfort or tension to a room? If so, share your story in the comments so others can feel seen. If not, simply comment, "I carry the wounded healer's light," to begin owning your empathic aura with awareness and spiritual wisdom. 3. Attraction of archetypes, healers, and vampires. Empaths move through the world as magnets for energy, pulling in not just people, but archetypes, those deep psychological patterns Carl Jung spoke of. Their aura, subtle yet powerful, becomes a mirror that reflects and amplifies both light and shadow in others. On the surface, this might seem like a gift, but without discernment, it becomes a dangerous loop. True empaths don't just feel, they absorb, they transmute, they embody. And because of that, they naturally attract two types of people: the seekers and the siphoners. The seekers are the ones who have begun their own spiritual awakening, those who crave depth, truth, and energetic clarity. They recognize the empath's light because they've worked through enough of their own darkness to meet it with reverence. But the siphoners, the energy vampires, the wounded inner children in adult bodies, the unconscious shadow projectors, are a different story. They come not to heal, but to survive. They cling, they drain, they unconsciously use the empath's kindness as a substitute for their own transformation. And the empath, unless they've learned the art of energetic discernment, confuses this pull with purpose. They stay too long, give too much, and sacrifice too often under the illusion that love can fix what only self-awareness can heal. This is the hidden cost of untrained compassion. Jung warned that the healer, if unaware of their own shadow, would become entangled in the very wounds they're trying to mend. The empath, if not grounded in wisdom, becomes a repeating story of burnout, heartbreak, and spiritual exhaustion. And in today's world, where trauma is often disguised as chemistry and emotional chaos is mistaken for depth, this confusion is more rampant than ever. The wounded often come disguised as intense soul connections. They mirror pain, not potential. They speak a language of vulnerability that feels intimate but is rooted in need, not growth. And because the empath feels everything, they mistake resonance for alignment. They confuse intensity for depth. But spirituality, true spirituality, is not about rescuing, it's about recognizing. It's about seeing clearly who is here to evolve with you and who is here to consume what you've cultivated through your own suffering. Empaths must learn that discernment is not judgment, it's energetic intelligence. It is the ability to feel everything but choose wisely. Your energy is sacred. It is not meant to be diluted in every story of brokenness that comes your way. Just because you can hold someone's pain doesn't mean you're meant to. The real test of your awakening is not how much you can endure, but how quickly you can identify what is yours to carry and what is not. Boundaries are not walls. They are invitations to conscious connection. When you say no to manipulation, you say yes to truth. When you walk away from those who only want your light but refuse to face their own shadow, you reclaim your power. You teach others by example that healing is a personal responsibility, that your empathy is not a loophole for their avoidance. And so, the deeper you go in your own spiritual awakening, the clearer it becomes. You are not here to save anyone. You are here to embody the frequency of someone who has saved themselves. That is the rare aura people feel. And yes, it may scare them. But it will also inspire those who are finally ready to rise. Do you feel this truth in your soul? Then type it below and claim it. I attract healers and expose vampires with my rare aura. 4. Energetic absorption and transmutation. You don't just feel energy, you become it, transmute it, and elevate it. That's what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of the transcendent function. As a true empath, you don't merely walk into a room, you shift the frequency of it. Your aura scans emotional patterns without your permission. You feel what others are afraid to feel. Their sadness, anger, confusion, or silent suffering enters your field, not because you're weak, but because you're spiritually wired to receive. And yet, it doesn't stop there. The energy doesn't stay as it is. Through an invisible, often painful process, you absorb it unconsciously, allow it to pass through your own nervous system, and somehow through the alchemy of your soul, you transform it. You become the filter, the fire, the healer. While others hide from shadow, you stand in it and turn it to light. It is not a skill you learned. It is a spiritual instinct developed through lifetimes of emotional attunement. You are the emotional translator for the collective, turning chaos into clarity and heaviness into harmony, often without even being thanked for it. But here's what most people don't see. This sacred ability, this psychic filtration system, comes with a high cost. It's why you're often exhausted in crowded places. It's why you wake up drained after emotional conversations, or why your mood shifts suddenly for no visible reason. You're not moody, you're processing. You're not unstable. You're tuning in. And yet, because this process is invisible to others, they may label you as sensitive, dramatic, or even intimidating. That's because your energy doesn't lie. It reveals. Your presence pulls up the emotional debris that others have buried. Some feel relieved around you. Others feel exposed. That's the duality of your spiritual development. Your light illuminates, but it also confronts. You are a walking mirror, and not everyone is ready to see what reflects back. Carl Jung understood that this kind of soul, what he called the wounded healer, is someone who has been through enough personal darkness to become a light for others. And you, without always knowing it, have carried pain that wasn't even yours, just to cleanse it for the collective. But now, it's time to reclaim what's yours. Your energy is a sacred resource, not a dumping ground. You are not here to endlessly absorb. You are here to choose what enters your field. And you must learn that boundaries are not barriers to love. They are expressions of it. Every time you say no to emotional overload, you say yes to your higher calling. You say yes to clarity, to alignment, to spiritual protection. So let the world misunderstand your silence. Let it misread your intensity. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to transmute what is heavy into what is holy. You were meant to feel the world deeply so you could help it rise gently. This isn't a personality trait. This is a soul assignment. This is not about being too sensitive. This is about carrying the architecture of healing in your very being. And while it may have felt lonely at times, know this: the universe designed you for this. Your spirituality isn't decoration, it's a force. Your spiritual development isn't soft, it's sacred fire. And the rare aura you carry is not a burden. It's a responsibility, a blessing, and a sign that you were never here to just survive emotions. You were here to transform them. 5. The mirror effect. Your aura triggers others. Your aura is not just a feeling. It's a frequency of spiritual intelligence that acts as a mirror, silently reflecting the truth of those around you. Carl Jung understood that the rare empath doesn't merely sense emotions. They carry a psychic mirror forged through pain, alchemy, and deep inner transformation. And when you walk into a room, your energy does what most people fear it reveals. Those who have embraced their own shadows and begun the journey of awakening feel at peace in your presence. Your silence calms them. Your stillness inspires them. This is the conscious reaction, where your frequency aligns with those who have the capacity to see clearly. They're not intimidated by your presence because they are not running from themselves. They see you and feel seen. They don't need you to dim your light. Instead, they feel invited to rise into theirs. But not everyone meets you at that frequency. For many, your aura acts like a spotlight that exposes the unresolved, the denied, and the repressed. These are the unconscious ones. Without realizing it, they begin to project onto you what they have refused to acknowledge within themselves. Suddenly, you're too much, too intense, too quiet, too sensitive, or simply not enough. But none of it is about you. You are simply the mirror. Jung called this the phenomenon of projection, and it happens when the ego defends itself from the discomfort of its own unhealed pain. You trigger them, not by doing anything wrong, but by being something they haven't yet dared to become, self-aware. And then there are those who do more than react. They seek to feed. These are the predatory ones, the spiritual parasites who sense the softness in your soul and attempt to consume it. They dump their emotional chaos on you, extract your energy without consent, and twist your empathy into obligation. To them, your aura isn't a mirror, it's a battery. Jung's archetype of the wounded healer warns us here. Without boundaries, your greatest gift becomes your greatest weakness. If you are not vigilant, you begin to absorb what was never yours, heal what was never asked to be healed, and carry weight that was never meant for your shoulders. True spiritual wisdom requires you to wield your aura not just as a light, but as a sword, one that cuts through manipulation with discernment and clarity. You were not meant to be drained. You were meant to be sacred. So you must observe how people respond to you. Who softens in your presence? Who resists your truth? Who only comes around when they're hungry for your light? These responses are not random. They are revelations. They show you the level of consciousness someone carries. They show you what your presence activates in their soul. Your aura is a living intelligence. It doesn't ask for attention, it commands truth. And in a world that hides behind masks, that is terrifying to those not ready to see. But that's not your burden. That's their mirror. If your energy has ever made someone uncomfortable without you saying a word, this message is for you. Like the video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and comment below, "My aura reflects truth." Let's affirm this powerful presence together. 6. Tapping into the collective unconscious. You carry something rare, an energetic sensitivity so deep it allows you to feel the pulse of humanity itself. This isn't just intuition. It's a direct link to what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, a reservoir of ancestral memory, global pain, and shared spiritual archetypes. You don't simply walk through life observing the world, you absorb it. The wars you've never seen, the heartbreaks you've never lived, the disasters you only hear about on the news, all of it vibrates through your nervous system like a silent alarm. That's why some days you feel a heaviness that doesn't belong to your story. You are an emotional antenna, tuned into the frequencies most people spend their whole lives avoiding. You are the world's early warning system, sensing shifts in energy before they erupt on the surface. And while this makes you uniquely gifted, it also leaves you vulnerable to energetic overload if you haven't yet learned to separate your own essence from the emotional static of others. This rare aura you carry isn't just light, it's forged in the fire of deep feeling, carved by suffering, and polished by compassion. That's why Jung called it the wounded healer. It's not born from innocence, but from alchemy, the spiritual transformation of pain into wisdom. You carry within you the imprint of everything you've survived, and that imprint becomes a healing presence for others. Your very energy speaks before you say a word. Some are calmed by your presence, not because you're doing anything, but because your aura transmits safety, depth, and truth. Yet this same energy can unnerve people who aren't ready to confront their own shadows. They don't understand why they feel exposed around you. They just know they can't hide. That's the paradox of your spiritual wisdom. You are both sanctuary and mirror. You hold space and you reveal. But without strong spiritual boundaries, this gift can turn into exhaustion. When you absorb the emotional residue of the collective fear, grief, and unrest, it begins to weigh you down. You might start to question your own stability, not realizing that what you're feeling doesn't belong to you. That's why emotional discernment isn't just important, it's essential for your survival and spiritual development. Grounding, solitude, breath work, and energetic cleansing aren't luxuries for someone like you. They are lifelines. You're not here to save everyone. You're here to stay sovereign while serving. You're not here to carry the pain of the world. You're here to help transmute it through your presence, not your sacrifice. Spirituality for you isn't an escape. It's a discipline, a sacred daily act of returning to yourself before you return to the world. It means knowing when to say yes, when to walk away, and when to let the silence speak for you. Your presence is powerful because you feel what others repress. You see what others deny. And that's exactly why you must protect your frequency like a rare jewel. Not everyone is meant to have access. Not everyone is meant to understand. But the ones who do, they will feel seen in ways they never knew they needed. And in that reflection, you will remember your purpose. 7. The aura method, Jung's framework for empowered empaths. To carry the rare empathic aura is to live in a world that often misunderstands you. But this isn't a burden, it's a calling. The aura method begins by asking you to acknowledge the truth of who you are. You don't merely sense emotion, you absorb it, you live it, you transmute it. While others intellectualize experience, you embody it. And this sensitivity isn't a flaw, it's a divine tool. The way you feel the unspoken, the way you pick up on the energy that lingers long after a smile fades or a conversation ends, that's not weakness. It's a sign that your nervous system is designed for a deeper layer of reality. Carl Jung understood this when he described the wounded healer, someone whose own pain becomes the channel for powerful transformation. And so, when you acknowledge your empathic nature, you begin to claim your role as that healer. But acknowledgement alone is not enough. You must also understand what shaped you. Most empaths did not become this way by chance. You were forged in emotional fire often in childhood, through roles you were never meant to play. Maybe you became the caretaker in a home full of chaos. Maybe your needs were silenced so you could tend to others. Jung would say, this unconscious programming forms the archetypal roots of your identity. By bringing awareness to these hidden scripts, the compulsion to fix, to please, to rescue you begin to liberate yourself. You start to see that your empathy is sacred, but it was never meant to be codependency. This is where the reclaiming begins. To reclaim is to pull your energy back from every place it was scattered. You no longer carry everyone else's pain as proof of love. You no longer confuse absorption with compassion. You learn the sacred art of psychic hygiene. Just as you would wash your hands after being in a crowded room, you learn to cleanse your energy through breath work, grounding, intentional solitude, even rituals like cutting energetic cords or shielding your aura with visualization. This is not spiritual fluff. It is survival for the empathic soul. Because without boundaries, your gift becomes a wound. But with boundaries, it becomes a force of healing. And finally, you activate. You activate conscious empathy, not by reacting to every emotional wave around you, but by choosing where and how to engage. You no longer give just because someone expects it. You give because your soul chooses it. This is the moment you shift from being controlled by energy to becoming the master of it. Empathy becomes your strength, not your trap. You begin to feel deeply without drowning, to care without collapsing. to love without losing yourself. This is the essence of spiritual awakening, not detachment, but discernment, not withdrawal, but wisdom. And in a world addicted to noise, your presence becomes sacred silence. In a world hungry for connection, your authenticity becomes light. You are no longer just reacting to life, you are alchemizing it. You are no longer a mirror, you are the flame. If you're ready to embrace the aura method and step into your power as an empowered empath, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and share your reflections in the comments below. Let's walk this path of awakening together. 8. Sovereign healer versus wounded healer. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this is the turning point for every true empath, the moment you stop healing from pain and start healing from power. You carry a frequency that once radiated the wounded healer's energy, someone who helped others not from fullness, but from a desperate need to make sense of their own wounds. But that old version of you no longer defines who you are becoming. The transformation happens the moment you do your shadow work, the inner excavation of repressed rage, heartbreak, and unmet emotional needs, and what emerges is a sovereign empath, someone who no longer bleeds to prove their worth, but stands whole in the power of spiritual intelligence. You no longer attract broken souls who drain your light because your energy no longer vibrates with chaos. Instead, you draw in those who have done the work, souls who don't want to be rescued, but rather seen, respected, and walked beside in truth. This rare aura you now embody is not born from natural goodness. It is forged through alchemy, through a brutal refinement of self where you integrated what others ran from. Your energy becomes still, but not silent, calm, but not passive. You carry presence, what Carl Jung might call a psychologically individuated identity. That presence disrupts manipulation because it no longer seeks approval. It unnerves those who hide behind emotional performance because your sovereignty holds up a mirror to what they refuse to feel. You are no longer explaining yourself to people who aren't listening, and you are no longer offering medicine to those who are addicted to their wounds. This kind of emotional mastery is not loud. It is grounded. It is felt in the pauses, in your boundaries, in the sacred distance you keep between your energy and chaos. As you step deeper into this version of yourself, you begin to understand why your old relationships fell apart, why certain people ghosted you, betrayed you, or recoiled from your truth. They were not rejecting you. They were retreating from the reflection you gave them. Your energy, now anchored in spiritual wisdom, is not for everyone. And that's not your failure, it's your filter. You're not here to be understood by the masses. You're here to be remembered by the few who are meant to walk beside you in mutual clarity. You've stopped absorbing the pain of others as your own and started discerning where your responsibility ends and theirs begins. This is the true meaning of spiritual boundaries, not walls to keep people out, but a sacred container to protect your light. You are no longer a healer who heals from hurt. You are a sovereign presence who transmits clarity just by being. And this is why people are drawn to you and scared of you at the same time. Because your stillness threatens their survival patterns. Your wholeness dissolves their illusions. And your intelligence, both emotional and spiritual, is not something that can be manipulated, coerced, or contained. You've become a living frequency shift, and some will rise with you, while others will fall away. Let them. If you're still with us on this journey of understanding the sovereign healer and the wounded healer, comment below. I choose to heal. Your voice helps us grow and connect with kindred spirits. 9. From burden to sacred gift. You carry something sacred within you, something that cannot be seen but is always felt. It's not fragility or brokenness. It's the silent strength of someone who has turned pain into purpose. Your aura is rare, not because you seek attention, but because you radiate truth in a world addicted to illusion. You've walked through shadows and didn't come out bitter, you came out luminous. Carl Jung believed that empaths represent the future of human psychology, not because they feel more, but because they feel consciously. You are not overwhelmed by emotion. You understand its language. And this emotional intelligence is what scares people. Because when you walk into a room, your presence calls others to confront themselves. You don't say much, but your energy reveals everything. You are the mirror they didn't ask for, but desperately need. People project their discomfort onto you because your aura reminds them of the healing they haven't yet done. That's not your burden, it's your power. Jung called it the wounded healer, a soul who has been broken open and used that fracture as a doorway to deeper wisdom. This is the path of the true empath. You are a living bridge between the unconscious and the conscious, helping others navigate the parts of themselves they've long denied. Your spirituality doesn't come from books. It comes from lived experience. And through that journey, you've gained a presence that cannot be faked. Your aura doesn't just glow, it pierces. It cuts through masks and pretenses. And that's why it feels so intense to others. Because most people are not used to being seen. And you, dear empath, see with the eyes of the soul. You feel the lies beneath the smiles. You sense the pain behind the pride. And while that makes you powerful, it also makes you vulnerable. Not because you are weak, but because you are wide open. You've chosen the harder path, the one that leads through feeling, not avoiding. And that path has shaped your spiritual development into something unshakable. But make no mistake, your energy is not for everyone. Not everyone is meant to stand in your light. Some will shrink from it. Some will try to dim it. Some will misunderstand it entirely. That is not a sign for you to close. It's a sign for you to choose more wisely. Your aura is sacred. Your empathy is earned. And your wisdom has been paid for in pain. Use it with discernment. Your presence heals, but not everyone deserves to drink from your well. True spirituality is not about saving everyone. It's about standing in truth and letting your very being invite others to rise. Those who are meant for you will recognize the power in your silence, the depth in your kindness, and the rare light that surrounds you. And in a world that constantly tries to numb, distract, and distort, you remain a living example of what it means to feel deeply and live consciously. That is your gift. That is your legacy. To honor the transformation of your rare aura from burden to sacred gift, declare it with courage. Comment below, I embrace my sacred gift, and let your light inspire others to see the power in their own journey. And so, as Carl Jung warned, carrying a rare aura is not a burden, but a powerful sign that you are living in deeper truth. Others may not always understand it, and some may even fear it. But it is this very energy that marks you as an empath with a sacred role in this world. If this message resonates with you, remember you are not alone in your journey. Before you go, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs this wisdom, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos, where we continue to explore the mysteries of the soul and the guidance of Carl Jung. Carl Jung's synchronicity, the hidden patterns that shape your life. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where today we explore the fascinating idea of synchronicity and the hidden patterns shaping your life. These moments are not mere coincidences. They are meaningful connections between your inner world and the universe around you. Imagine what could change if you recognized and applied these principles to your daily life. How much clarity, growth, and happiness might unfold. As you listen, I invite you to reflect on your own experiences of synchronicity and share them in the comments below, because your story might be the missing piece of wisdom someone else needs. 1. Jung's early visions and the birth of synchronicity. As a child and young adult, Jung was haunted by intense dreams, startling visions, and strange phenomena, such as objects breaking on their own. At first, these experiences filled him with fear, making him question his own sanity. Yet beneath the terror was a profound realization. Life was not ruled purely by chance. These events seemed to follow a deeper rhythm, pointing toward patterns that were invisible yet meaningful. What others might have dismissed as accidents, Jung began to interpret as signs of connection between the inner world of the psyche and the outer events of reality. This awakening marked the beginning of his lifelong quest to understand the unconscious and its mysterious dialogue with the physical world. He came to see that dreams, visions, and even the smallest coincidences could hold messages that bridge spirit and matter, revealing an order that reason alone could not explain. Far from madness, these early experiences became doorways into a larger truth that the unconscious is not only personal, but also collective, shaping and reflecting the universe itself. Through this lens, spirituality became not an escape from life, but a deep engagement with its hidden structure. Jung's early visions remind us that what we fear as chaos may actually be the first glimpse of higher intelligence at work. Each synchronicity, each meaningful coincidence, carries with it the potential for spiritual awakening, showing us that the world is alive with purpose. When we learn to read these patterns, as Jung did, we begin to understand that our lives are not random, but guided, unfolding through a delicate dance between psyche, spirit, and reality itself. 2. Collective unconscious and archetypes. Carl Jung realized that his own visions echoed great world events like the First World War. And from this, he developed the idea of the collective unconscious, a hidden layer of the human psyche that belongs not just to the individual, but to all of humanity. Within it live archetypes, universal patterns of meaning such as the hero, the mother, the shadow, and the wise old man. These archetypes are not inventions of culture, but timeless images that shape how people think, feel, and act, surfacing in myths, stories, dreams, and even the choices we make. They are invisible frameworks that guide spiritual development, connecting us to the experiences of countless generations before us. Jung also showed that archetypes are tied to synchronicity, those mysterious, meaningful coincidences when inner experience aligns with outer events. A sudden meeting, a recurring dream, or an unexpected sign at the right moment are not accidents, but messages from the deeper fabric of life. They reveal that your personal journey is woven into something greater, and that spirituality is not separate from daily events, but alive in the very patterns you encounter. By recognizing these moments, you begin to see life not as random, but as filled with purpose, where every coincidence has the power to guide you toward growth. Archetypes teach that the shadow is not to be feared, but to be faced, for within it lies wisdom, that the hero's path is your own, inviting you to overcome trials and rise to your higher self, and that the wise old man appears whenever you are ready to receive guidance, whether through a mentor, a book, or an inner voice. Synchronicity, in turn, invites you to pay attention, to ask what message is being revealed, and to align your choices with the deeper truths unfolding in your life. Through the collective unconscious and the archetypes within it, Jung revealed that human beings are not isolated, but deeply connected to one another and to the universe itself. Every dream, symbol, and coincidence becomes a doorway to greater awareness, reminding you that your life is part of a vast and meaningful design. By honoring these hidden patterns, you step into spiritual development, awaken wisdom, and discover that your journey belongs not just to you, but to the collective soul of humanity. Do you feel the pull of the collective unconscious and the archetype shaping your path? If you believe this truth, comment with faith, "I awaken to the wisdom of the collective unconscious." 3. Synchronicity as a principle beyond causality. Synchronicity is not a random coincidence, but a meaningful pattern that reveals the hidden intelligence of life. Carl Jung used this word to describe events that are not linked by cause and effect, yet are bound by meaning, showing us that psyche and matter are two sides of the same fabric. He called this the unus mundus, the one world where inner and outer reality are connected. When you think of a person and they suddenly call, or when a symbol appears at the exact moment you need guidance, these are not accidents, but invitations to see that life itself speaks in signs. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Jung reminded us, and synchronicity is one of the ways the unconscious becomes visible. This principle challenges the narrow belief that everything must have a material cause. It suggests that meaning itself is a form of connection, that your inner world and the outer world move in alignment beyond time and space. To notice synchronicity is to awaken to the reality that life is not mechanical, but intelligent, not chaotic, but intentional. Every symbol, every dream, every encounter can carry a message meant to guide your growth. Jung showed that the psyche holds an intelligence that interacts with the universe in ways rational logic alone cannot explain, and that to live wisely is to pay attention to this dialogue between soul and cosmos. Recognizing synchronicity transforms the way you see yourself and your journey. It tells you that you are not alone, that your steps are part of a larger design. When you embrace these moments, you develop spiritual wisdom, learning to trust your intuition and to align with the deeper order shaping your path. Synchronicity turns life from a series of disconnected accidents into a story of connection, reminding you that every experience has the potential to awaken, transform, and reveal the hidden patterns shaping your destiny. 4. Science, spirituality, and alchemy. Jung recognized synchronicity as a profound bridge between science, spirituality, and alchemy, showing that life is not random but deeply interconnected. In quantum physics, the observer effect revealed that consciousness can influence outcomes, and Jung saw this as evidence that the mind and the material world are intertwined. He linked this to the Hermetic principle, as above, so below, teaching that the patterns of the cosmos mirror the patterns of the human soul, and that inner transformation is always reflected outward. For him, synchronicity was not coincidence, but a sign of the hidden order uniting the seen and unseen, a message calling us toward deeper spiritual awakening. His study of Eastern texts, such as The Secret of the Golden Flower, expanded this vision, where Taoist wisdom described inner alchemy and the balance of opposites. Jung found in mandalas a living expression of the psyche's drive for harmony, symbols of wholeness that unite light and shadow, yin and yang, conscious and unconscious. These images demonstrated that spiritual growth is achieved not by denying parts of ourselves, but by embracing and integrating them into a greater whole. They revealed how the soul naturally moves toward balance and order, mirroring the cosmic design that shapes existence itself. Through this synthesis of science, spirituality, and alchemy, Jung showed that synchronicity is both a psychological truth and a spiritual law. Just as quantum theory suggests the observer plays a role in shaping reality, Jung believed awareness tunes us into currents of meaning that bring the right people, experiences, and revelations at the right time. Every synchronistic event is a reminder that your life is part of a larger tapestry woven with purpose, guiding you toward wholeness and awakening. By understanding these hidden patterns, you are invited to live with greater awareness, to see every moment as infused with meaning, and to recognize the harmony between your inner journey and the vast intelligence of the universe. 5. Synchronicity in therapy and daily life. Carl Jung revealed that synchronicity is not a random accident, but a bridge between inner experience and outer reality, showing us that life moves according to hidden patterns. In therapy, he often used this principle to help patients break free from rigid, rational thinking and to open themselves to deeper truths. The famous golden scarab incident illustrates this perfectly. A patient shared a dream about a golden scarab, and at that very moment, a scarab-like beetle appeared at the window. When Jung presented it to her, the shock of that alignment shattered her disbelief, proving that life carries meaning beyond logic. For Jung, true healing was never limited to the mind alone. It had to touch the entire person, body, mind, and spirit, because real spiritual development comes from recognizing that our lives are part of a greater cosmic pattern. Synchronicity transforms how we see our struggles. Instead of treating them as random burdens, Jung encouraged us to view them as meaningful signs, guiding us toward growth and wholeness. When we notice how dreams, encounters, and repeating symbols align with our inner states, we realize that life is a living dialogue between our soul and the universe. This is where spirituality deepens through the awareness that we are not separate, but intimately connected to a larger intelligence. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." In the same way, synchronicity transforms us, because every significant moment of alignment becomes an invitation to awaken. In daily life, synchronicity can appear as a chance meeting, a song lyric that speaks directly to your heart, or a repeating number that reassures you of your path. These moments are not coincidences. They are reminders that you are guided and that your journey has meaning. They reveal a mirror between the psyche and the universe, showing that reality is not chaotic, but purposeful. By paying attention, you step more fully into spirituality, because synchronicity calls you to awaken, to align with your higher self, and to consciously engage in your own spiritual development. The more you listen, the more you recognize that you are never alone. The universe is always speaking, always guiding, always shaping you toward transformation. Stay connected with our community of spiritual wisdom by subscribing to our channel. Here, we explore Carl Jung's synchronicity and reveal how hidden patterns can guide your daily life and even transform therapy. Remember, you are deeply connected to a greater order, and every sign you notice is a reminder that life is filled with meaning and guidance. 6. The 5 types of synchronicity. Warning synchronicities arrive as life's alert system, guiding you before pivotal or stressful events unfold, showing up as sudden signs, recurring names, or unusual patterns that nudge you to pay attention. They echo the Hermetic principle of cause and effect, reminding you that nothing happens by chance, and that awareness gives you the power to prepare before the storm arrives. Confirmation synchronicities, on the other hand, appear to reassure you that you are aligned with your path, whether through repeating numbers, timely encounters, or symbols that echo your inner desires, embodying the Hermetic principle of correspondence that is within you, reflects back from the world around you. Prophetic synchronicities speak through symbols, visions, and dreams that carry hints of what is to come, giving you glimpses of future shifts and guiding you with foresight. They resonate with the principle of vibration, teaching that everything is energy and that the psyche communicates through patterns that reveal meaning when you learn to listen. Manifestation synchronicities occur when thoughts and desires take form in the physical world, proving that your mind is not just a private space, but the architect of your reality. They reveal the principle of mentalism, showing that focused thought, charged with emotion, eventually crystallizes into experience. Opportunity synchronicities emerge at the intersection of preparation and timing, when doors suddenly open in ways that perfectly match your readiness. These moments demonstrate the principles of polarity and rhythm, where cycles of challenge give way to cycles of opportunity and obstacles shift into pathways of growth. All 5 types, warning, confirmation, prophetic, manifestation, and opportunity illustrate that synchronicity is not mere coincidence, but a language of intelligence and spiritual wisdom woven into the fabric of life. By learning to recognize and trust these patterns, you move from passively experiencing life to consciously co-creating it, seeing that every sign, every encounter, and every moment carries meaning. 7. Self-realization through synchronicity. Jung described individuation, the process of becoming your true self, as a circular journey symbolized by the mandala, where synchronicity serves as a guide leading the ego toward the self. Within this circle, every meaningful coincidence becomes a signal, reminding you that life is not random but patterned with deep significance, revealing that your inner world and the outer cosmos are intimately connected. When you begin to notice these patterns, you realize that each encounter, each moment of alignment, is a message calling you closer to wholeness. Synchronicity is more than chance. It is the universe reflecting your inner state back to you, showing that spirituality is not an abstract belief, but a lived experience of harmony between mind and world. A sudden meeting, a phrase heard at the exact moment you need it, or a challenge that forces growth all serve as evidence of this hidden order. By aligning yourself with these signs, you begin to move with life rather than against it, awakening to the truth that you are part of a larger design. As this awareness deepens, creativity flows more freely. Relationships reveal hidden lessons, and even obstacles transform into opportunities for growth. The journey becomes less about control and more about trust, as synchronicity teaches you to see meaning in every twist of the path. Each return to old experiences offers new understanding, drawing you closer to the self, just as the mandala's circle draws all lines to its center. In this way, self-realization emerges not through force, but through surrender, as synchronicity unveils the unity of soul and cosmos and guides you into the heart of spiritual awakening. And so, as we reflect on Carl Jung's insight into synchronicity, we are reminded that life is filled with hidden patterns waiting to be noticed. These moments are not random. They are invitations to trust the flow of life and to listen to the deeper wisdom that surrounds us. If this message has inspired you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming explorations into the mysteries of the soul and the universe. Spiritually awake people don't do these anymore. Carl Jung knew why. Carl Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." In today's world, being spiritually awake isn't just about what you add to your life. It's also about what you stop doing. The path of awakening calls us to release old habits, distractions, and energies that no longer serve our growth. As you listen to these insights, think about your own journey. Which of these patterns have you already let go of? And which are you still holding on to? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how these principles are shaping your daily life. Welcome to Spiritual Wisdom, where together we explore the truth that can transform both our happiness and our destiny. 1. Spiritual awakening is a shedding, not an adding. Spiritual awakening is not a process of adding more to your identity, but of peeling away what was never real to begin with. The patterns, masks, and expectations that once seemed necessary gradually feel heavy, suffocating, and false. Carl Jung reminded us that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And this wisdom points to the essence of awakening. It is not about creating a new self, but about uncovering the authentic one that has always been waiting beneath the surface. As you awaken, you begin to notice how many of your choices were guided by the need to fit in, to please, or to survive. What once felt intelligent for protection, shaping yourself to meet the demands of others, seeking validation, hiding your true feelings, now feels like betrayal of the soul. These patterns do not disappear overnight, and you do not force yourself to stop them. They fall away naturally, like old skin that no longer fits. Just as a snake quietly sheds what it has outgrown, so too do you release behaviors that cannot contain the new life rising within you. Jung observed in countless individuals that transformation rarely arrives in a dramatic burst, but in a quiet, consistent unfolding. Genuine spiritual wisdom reveals itself as a slow release rather than a sudden performance. The unconscious begins to rise into awareness, and in that awareness, the old habits lose their grip. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, Jung said. An awakening is precisely this: the shift from being ruled by invisible patterns to consciously stepping into truth. As this process deepens, you may find yourself unwilling to engage in shallow conversations, drama, or the endless cycle of seeking approval. These are not acts of arrogance or rejection. They are signs that your inner self is finally strong enough to no longer feed what drains you. Instead of grasping at validation, you begin to rest in confidence. Instead of pleasing everyone, you grow into authentic compassion. Instead of hiding behind masks, you show up as a presence. What falls away is not a loss, but a revelation. In surrendering the false, you allow the true to shine. The intelligence of the soul does not demand that you become more. It invites you to become less conditioned, less masked, less fragmented, so that you can return to the essence of who you really are. The journey is not about collapse, but about unfolding. Not about striving harder, but about surrendering deeper. With each layer released, the light of authenticity grows stronger. And in that light, you recognize that awakening was never about becoming someone new. It was always about remembering who you have been all along. Comment below: I release what no longer serves me. If you're ready to embrace the true shedding of spiritual awakening. 2. They quit seeking approval. When spiritual awakening deepens, something inside you shifts so profoundly that the old hunger for approval becomes unbearable, because the soul recognizes it as a false currency. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And when this realization dawns, you begin to see how much of your life was lived through masks designed to please others. Approval seeking, once a habit that felt necessary for survival, suddenly feels like self-betrayal, because every time you mold yourself for recognition, you are trading authenticity for applause. In the noise of modern life, where likes, shares, and comments are used as proof of worth, this lesson becomes even sharper. Spirituality teaches that no amount of external validation can replace the deep, unshakable sense of value that comes from within. The awakening self begins to see how chasing approval drains energy and fragments identity. You may notice how often people sacrifice their truth to be liked, posting what they don't believe in, saying yes when their soul whispers no, or bending dreams to fit into the narrow boxes of expectation. Yet when spirituality takes root, you feel an inner resistance rising against these patterns, a refusal to keep abandoning yourself. Jung described this process as individuation, the journey of becoming whole, and in this wholeness, you no longer crave the fleeting nods of recognition because they pale in comparison to the peace of living aligned with your essence. Authenticity, once frightening, becomes irresistible, and the desire to be validated by the crowd fades, replaced by a deeper commitment to your own soul's voice. This shift is not about arrogance or indifference. It is about liberation. When you stop living for approval, you stop being controlled by it, and suddenly, the opinions of others lose their power to define you. In today's culture of comparison, where identity is often measured in numbers, spiritual awakening reminds you that the metrics of the soul cannot be counted. Inner worth is timeless and cannot be given or taken away. To accept yourself fully, shadows and all, is, as Jung wrote, the most terrifying thing, but it is also the most freeing. You begin to understand that those who truly resonate with your energy will recognize you without you needing to prove anything, because authenticity is magnetic in a way performance never could be. The wisdom here is simple but profound. Stop begging for approval and start embodying your worth. In modern life, this might mean saying no to a toxic relationship that only survives through your constant pleasing, walking away from a career path that drains your spirit just to look respectable, or silencing the urge to post for validation and instead sharing from genuine inspiration. Spirituality does not erase your longing for connection, it transforms it. You no longer want attention from everyone. You want resonance with the right ones. And paradoxically, it is when you release the chase for validation that you attract genuine love, respect, and alignment. Not because you demanded it, but because truth naturally draws what belongs to it. That is the intelligence of spiritual wisdom Carl Jung uncovered. The spiritually awake no longer seek approval because they have already found something far greater than their authentic self. 3. They quit needing to be special. At the beginning of awakening, many people experience what Carl Jung described as spiritual inflation, a sense of being chosen, superior, or somehow above the rest. It feels like stepping into a hidden truth that others cannot yet see. And for a time, the ego clings to this sensation of specialness. But as spiritual development matures, this illusion begins to dissolve. True spirituality is never about standing on a pedestal or demanding recognition. It is about embodying authenticity without the craving for applause. The spiritually awakened discover that the desire to be seen as unique is nothing more than another mask, another performance for the outside world. And they realize that real growth lies in quietly living their truth. Jung observed that genuine maturity in spirituality is not expressed by claiming, "I am awakened," but by a deep humility that grows naturally when the ego's need for superiority fades away. Instead of trying to prove their uniqueness, spiritually awake people embody it effortlessly. like a river that does not announce its flow, yet sustains life all around it. The more they release the pressure to perform, the more their presence speaks louder than any declaration. This shift is not about shrinking who you are, but about allowing your individuality to shine without effort or competition. Jung understood that the ego, with its constant need to compare and elevate itself, is often the greatest barrier to consciousness. And so, when that need begins to fall away, what remains is something far more radiant: authenticity that cannot be manufactured, a quiet light that others naturally feel and are drawn to without explanation. In our modern world, dominated by social media and constant validation seeking, this lesson holds deep relevance. Everywhere you turn, you are encouraged to perform, to curate your identity, to measure your value by numbers, to shout louder to be noticed. But awakening pulls you in the opposite direction. It asks you to pause and ask, am I expressing my truth, or am I chasing approval? Spiritual development teaches you that real worth is not tied to recognition, but to the quiet alignment of your life with your inner essence. When you no longer depend on attention to confirm your value, you step into freedom. You begin to understand that the divine spark within does not compete. It simply exists, complete and whole in itself. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This is the essence of awakening, not to be special compared to others, but to be whole within yourself. The spiritually awake no longer waste energy on proving their importance, because they have discovered that worthiness has always been their birthright. They do not ask the world to recognize them. They simply live in the flow of their truth, with quiet confidence and steady peace. The deeper message here is simple yet transformative. Spirituality invites you to release the burden of superiority and to rest in your authentic being. The more you let go of the need to be special, the more extraordinary life becomes, not through performance or comparison, but through the silent power of presence and the wisdom of simply being. If you're ready to release the need to be special and simply live in your authentic truth, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and share your reflections in the comments below. Let's grow together on this path. 4. They quit performing happiness. Spiritually awake people no longer perform happiness because they have learned that real spiritual wisdom is not about maintaining an image of endless positivity, but about embracing the full depth of human experience. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that truth means accepting both light and shadow, both joy and sorrow. Pretending to always be fine only creates a mask that suffocates the soul, while allowing yourself to be real opens the door to true freedom and intelligence in your spiritual journey. When you stop performing happiness, you release the exhausting need to convince others that everything is perfect. Instead, you begin to honor your feelings honestly, whether they are grief, doubt, or fear. And this honesty becomes the foundation of your strength. Jung reminded us, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In this way, you no longer deny the parts of yourself that are hurting. You invite them into awareness, where they can be healed. Just like the sky holds both day and night, your soul carries both light and shadow, and both are equally essential to your growth. This shift also frees you from the trap of external validation. When you stop needing to perform for others' approval, you step out of the prison of appearances and into the authenticity of your own truth. It takes courage to admit, "Today, I am not okay." But that very courage is what makes you strong and deeply human. People can sense when you are real, and it draws them closer, because authenticity carries a magnetic power that pretense never can. Spiritual maturity is not measured by how cheerful you appear, but by how whole you allow yourself to be. Jung warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Performing happiness only keeps your unconscious locked away, while authenticity sets you free. By allowing yourself to rest when you are weary, to cry when you need release, and to celebrate joy when it truly flows, you honor your humanity and embody spiritual wisdom. So, the journey of awakening is not about forced positivity, but about living truthfully, with intelligence, honesty, and courage. When you stop acting happy and start being real, you step into the deeper freedom of becoming your whole self. And that is where the essence of true awakening lives. 5. They quit needing certainty. Carl Jung once reminded us, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And in this truth lies the realization that certainty, though it may feel safe, becomes a cage that locks the soul away from true growth. Spiritual awakening reveals that clinging to absolute answers is not wisdom, but fear disguised as control. And the moment you begin to release the obsession with knowing everything is the moment you step into the deeper intelligence of spiritual wisdom. Life was never meant to be lived like a formula where every step is predicted. Instead, it was meant to unfold like a mystery, guiding you through paradoxes and unanswered questions that expand your spirit rather than confine it. In modern life, certainty is worshipped. People chase financial guarantees, fixed outcomes in relationships, and rigid belief systems. But awakening makes you see that certainty itself is an illusion, fragile and temporary, while openness to not knowing creates a strength that cannot be shaken. The awakened soul learns to sit comfortably with paradox, understanding that questions themselves are a sacred teacher. As Rainer Maria Rilke beautifully wrote, "Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. Because in loving the questions, you stop demanding the universe to hand you guarantees, and instead begin to trust the unfolding of life." Spirituality teaches you that wisdom is not a static possession, but a living dialogue between your conscious choices and your unconscious depths, between reason and intuition. This is why awakened people slowly let go of their hunger for certainty. They begin to trust their inner compass, knowing that every choice, whether it feels right or wrong, carries a necessary lesson. In practice, this looks like releasing the pressure to define every relationship with labels, choosing to trust in timing instead of forcing outcomes, or allowing your beliefs to evolve instead of holding on to them out of fear. Letting go of certainty does not mean you drift without direction. It means you live with trust rather than control. When you no longer demand guarantees, you create space for synchronicity, for intuition, and for possibilities your logical mind could never predict. Life becomes an unfolding journey rather than a rigid map. And this shift brings a peace far deeper than the brittle comfort of control. Jung observed that true spirituality is not about clinging, but about releasing. Not about answers, but about presence. And the privilege of becoming who you are lies in this surrender. When you stop needing certainty, you find yourself open to wisdom that grows slowly, like light filtering through cracks in the darkness, guiding you not toward guarantees, but toward authenticity. In this way, spirituality transforms fear of the unknown into reverence for mystery, showing you that the unknown itself is not a threat, but a sacred invitation into the fullness of life. Are you ready to release the need for certainty and step fully into trust? If so, comment below. I embrace uncertainty, to affirm your commitment to this path of spiritual awakening. 6. They quit blame. Spiritually awake people quit blame because they realize that carrying it only prolongs suffering and prevents true freedom. Blame keeps you trapped in a story of victimhood, where the past dictates your present and shapes your future. But spirituality teaches that liberation begins when you reclaim your power. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And this truth reveals why the spiritually developed refuse to remain in cycles of accusation. They see that while harm and injustice may have shaped their journey, constantly pointing fingers does not bring healing. Instead, they take ownership of their growth, not by denying pain, but by transforming it into wisdom, strength, and clarity. When you quit blame, you begin to see patterns that were once hidden and recognize your role in how you respond to life. This is not about excusing wrongs or ignoring wounds, but about choosing not to surrender your power to the people or events that once hurt you. Rather than replaying the same painful narratives, you redirect energy towards self-discovery and transformation. Spirituality becomes practical. Instead of blaming a workplace for your misery, you choose to set boundaries or create new opportunities. Instead of blaming a broken relationship, you learn its lessons and enter new connections with a wiser heart. Instead of blaming the world for being unfair, you build resilience and discover the strength to shape a more meaningful path. Carl Jung observed that real spiritual development is not achieved through sudden, dramatic change, but through gradual releasing, a slow but steady shedding of the old skin that no longer fits. Blame is one of the first things to fall away because it suffocates the soul. Each time you refuse to indulge in blame and instead turn inward, you open the door to growth. Slowly, you experience a quiet yet profound liberation where peace no longer depends on external circumstances, but on your inner state. This inner strength allows you to respond rather than react, to rise above chaos rather than be swallowed by it. The spiritually awake know that freedom is never found in controlling others, but in mastering themselves. They have learned that every experience can be a teacher, every disappointment can spark resilience, and every wound can refine the spirit. The deeper the pain, the greater the opportunity for awakening. And so, they stop wasting energy on blame because they understand it is a chain that ties them to what they wish to escape. In letting go, they reclaim not only their power, but also their joy, their clarity, and their sense of purpose. To walk this path is to see that blame serves no one. It is ownership, responsibility, and conscious evolution that transform the soul and lead to the true liberation that every seeker of spirituality longs to experience. 7. They quit spiritual bypassing. They quit spiritual bypassing because they realize that spirituality is not about escaping pain or hiding behind illusions of light, but about embracing the full spectrum of life. Instead of pretending that suffering doesn't exist, they allow themselves to feel it, to sit with it, and to learn from it. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And those words remind us that true awakening demands facing what hurts rather than denying it. Spiritually awake people understand that bypassing only creates a fragile mask, while courageously engaging with their wounds brings lasting transformation. When they stop bypassing, they no longer use positive slogans or spiritual cliches to cover their struggles. They don't hide grief under the phrase, "everything happens for a reason," nor do they dismiss sadness as weakness or anger as low vibration. Instead, they see these emotions as messengers pointing to deeper truths within. They begin to embody a balanced intelligence where spiritual wisdom meets human honesty. They live with one foot in heaven and one foot on earth, fully present in relationships, work, joy, and pain. In this presence, they find that emotions are not enemies to conquer, but signals to integrate. Carl Jung often spoke about the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we would rather not face. Spiritually awake people no longer pretend that the shadow doesn't exist. They recognize that ignoring it only feeds it, while acknowledging it brings real freedom. By daring to look at their anger, their fear, and their shame, they reclaim their wholeness. What was once repressed becomes transformed into strength. This is why Jung observed that there is no coming to consciousness without pain, because pain, when faced, becomes a doorway into deeper awareness. As they release the urge to bypass, their compassion also expands. They no longer use spirituality as a way to feel superior, but as a bridge of connection with others. They stop judging those who struggle because they know how much courage it takes to face wounds honestly. Their laughter becomes healing. Their tears become sacred, and their scars become wisdom. Instead of trying to transcend their humanity, they honor it, knowing that divinity is found not in escape, but in embodiment. This shift marks the true maturity of awakening, no longer chasing illusions of constant bliss, but embracing the raw truth of life. To quit spiritual bypassing is to accept that every shadow carries a lesson and every wound carries wisdom. It is to live awake, to live whole, and to live free. If this message resonates with you, share your thoughts below. Not sure what to say? Simply comment, "I see clearly," so I'll know you made it to the end. 8. They quit isolation. Awakening often begins with solitude, because in the early stages, you feel the need to step away from the world, to listen to your inner voice, and to protect your energy from distractions. This retreat is not weakness, but a necessary pause, a time to strip away illusions and face the truth within. Yet as your spirituality matures, isolation no longer feels like a sanctuary. It begins to feel like a cage. The awakened spirit understands that growth cannot remain locked away in silence, because true transformation leads you back into conscious connection with others. Carl Jung observed that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And this reflects the essence of spiritual awakening, the return to relationships that refine, expand, and deepen your being. Instead of superiority or self-erasure, you learn to form relationships rooted in authenticity. You no longer approach people with masks, roles, or the need to impress. You show up as yourself, unhidden and unafraid. The intimacy you create is not about merging into another or controlling them, but about allowing two whole beings to stand together with presence and respect. In a modern world where loneliness has quietly become one of the greatest epidemics, this shift is powerful. Many people scroll endlessly, surrounded by digital noise, yet remain unseen and unheard. Spiritual awakening reveals that shallow approval and empty validation cannot feed the soul. You crave depth, truth, and communities that honor presence over performance. This new way of connection changes how you live every day. When you are with someone, you are not distracted, rehearsing your next words, or glancing at your phone. You are fully there, listening not only with your ears, but with your spirit. Presence becomes your gift, and it creates bonds that are both intimate and liberating. In this way, relationships stop being a stage for ego battles or codependency, and instead become a sacred ground where two souls can grow side by side. Solitude still has its place as a moment of reflection, but you no longer mistake isolation for enlightenment. The path of spiritual awakening leads you into the world with a new heart, one that seeks connection without fear, superiority, or dependence, and one that turns ordinary encounters into transformative experiences of genuine intimacy. 9. The deeper truth. Quitting is liberation. The deeper truth is that quitting is liberation, because every act of release opens the doorway to authenticity, freedom, and spiritual development. When you stop living for approval, you no longer measure your value by the reactions of others, but by the quiet strength of your own soul. Letting go of the need to feel special frees you from endless comparison, and you begin to recognize that your worth has never depended on standing above anyone else. It has always been intrinsic. Dropping the exhausting performance of roles and masks allows you to breathe more deeply, to live more honestly, and to rest in the peace of simply being. Releasing the obsession with certainty teaches you to trust life's unfolding, to lean into mystery, and to understand that true spirituality is not found in rigid answers, but in walking faithfully through the unknown. Each release of approval, specialness, performance, certainty, blame, bypassing, and isolation creates sacred space within you for authenticity, inner power, wisdom, embodiment, and meaningful connection. Carl Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Spirituality, then, is not about building a new identity, but about peeling away every false layer until the self that has always been true emerges. This is a slow death and rebirth of identity, a cycle where the illusions you once clung to dissolve, and what remains is the essence of your being. Just as autumn leaves fall, not as a sign of death, but as preparation for renewal, so too does the soul let go of what no longer serves, so it can be reborn into clarity and strength. Spiritually awake people no longer cling to blame, because blame anchors them to the past and keeps wounds alive. They no longer bypass pain with shallow positivity, because they understand that healing requires facing the shadow with honesty and courage. They no longer isolate themselves, because awakening reveals that separation is an illusion, and that compassion and connection are the lifeblood of the human spirit. In a modern world, saturated with noise, pressure, and competition, these acts of release become revolutionary. Every time you surrender an old pattern, you reclaim your wholeness. Every time you refuse to play society's empty games, you align more deeply with your authentic power. And every time you release control, you discover the peace that arises when you allow life to flow through you. The message is clear. Spiritual development is not about adding more layers to who you think you should be, but about stripping away illusions, lies, and expectations until only truth remains. To walk this path is to understand that your strength lies not in accumulation, but in release. Not in proving, but in presence. Not in striving to become someone else, but in remembering who you already are at your core. And so, the journey of the spiritually awake is not defined by what they add, but by what they've learned to let go of. The wisdom of Carl Jung reminds us that true awakening is a process of release, refinement, and deep inner clarity. If today's message from spiritual wisdom has inspired you, I invite you to carry these insights into your daily life and notice how they transform you from within. Before you go, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the powerful content we have coming your way. At 60, everything changes spiritually. Carl Jung once said, "We cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning." At 60, life takes on a new spiritual dimension, one that calls us to reflect, release, and rise into deeper wisdom. This is not the end of vitality, but the awakening of a richer chapter where spirituality becomes our greatest guide. In this video on spiritual wisdom, we'll explore why everything changes spiritually at 60 and how embracing these truths can bring peace, growth, and happiness. What about you? Have you noticed how aging has shifted your inner perspective? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your experience. 1. The hidden curve of life at 60. Around the age of 60, something quiet but extraordinary begins to unfold within the human spirit. Outwardly, life may appear steady, familiar, even ordinary. The body slows a little. The pace of days feels calmer, and emotions soften into simplicity. Yet inside, a subtle axis turns. The soul begins to reorient itself, no longer clinging to the urgency of ambition or the constant desire to prove its worth. What once mattered, the applause, the titles, the endless race for achievement, starts to lose its hold. Instead, the soul leans inward, seeking the forgotten essence, the hidden treasures of meaning that were overlooked in the first half of life. Carl Jung captured this truth when he wrote, "The afternoon of life must also have a significance of its own and cannot be merely a pitiful appendage to life's morning." At 60, you are stepping into that afternoon. And this transition is not just natural, it is deeply spiritual. This hidden curve does not arrive with drama, but with whispers. It gently erases the illusion that survival and recognition are the ultimate goals. You may notice yourself no longer needing to please others, no longer desperate to fit into roles designed by society. The very hunger that once drove you forward now transforms into a different kind of intelligence, an intelligence rooted in spiritual wisdom, reflection, and truth. Jung explained that the first half of life is about building, gathering possessions, shaping identity, securing place and purpose in the outer world. Yet the second half of life demands something else. It calls for integration, for balance, for the courage to turn inward. As he said, "What was great in the morning will be little in the evening, and what in the morning was true will in the evening have become a lie." This is not decline, it is awakening. The shift at 60 is not about giving up, but about tuning in. It is an invitation to see life from a higher vantage point, to measure your days not by productivity, but by presence. It is the season when wisdom outweighs ambition, when authenticity matters more than approval, and when the intelligence of the heart surpasses the cleverness of the mind. You are not retreating from the world. You are rediscovering your place within it. In this sacred transition, you realize that the true journey was never about chasing recognition, but about uncovering the wholeness already within you. And so, at 60, everything changes spiritually, because life itself redirects you toward what is eternal. Old ambitions dissolve, leaving space for clarity. The need to impress fades, revealing the desire to connect. What emerges is a deeper hunger, not for more achievements, but for truth, love, and alignment with the soul. This is where Carl Jung's intelligence and spiritual wisdom guide us. The recognition that the curve of life bends not toward endings, but toward awakening. To embrace this curve is to discover that the second half of life is not smaller, but infinitely greater. For it is here that the soul finally remembers itself. Have you ever noticed that hidden curve of life around 60, when everything begins to shift spiritually? If you've experienced this transformation, share your story in the comments so others can learn from it. If not, comment, "I will discover," to open yourself to this deeper journey of awakening. 2. From ego to soul. The first half of life is a long construction project, building the ego brick by brick. But as Carl Jung explained, the second half belongs to the soul. By the time a person reaches 60, the structures of identity, ambition, and approval begin to crumble under their own weight. The masks that once served us no longer fit. The pretenses we once carried feel heavy. And what rises in their place is a soul that demands authenticity. Many interpret the deep fatigue that appears at this stage as depression, but Jung called it clarity, because the soul is no longer willing to waste energy on illusions. What feels like an ending is actually a beginning, a turning inward where spiritual awakening reveals itself as the deeper purpose of the years ahead. In earlier decades, the ego thrived on proving itself, chasing recognition, building careers, accumulating titles, and striving to meet the endless expectations of others. Yet by 60, that urgency fades, and the desire to impress dissolves, replaced by a quiet recognition that none of these things truly define who we are. This is the subtle but powerful shift from ego to soul, a redirection of energy from the external world of validation to the internal world of truth. Though it can feel unsettling, even disorienting, this discomfort is not decay, but transformation, not decline, but liberation. Jung reminded us that the afternoon of life cannot be lived by the rules of its morning, and this wisdom is a call to embrace a new dimension of spirituality, where meaning is no longer borrowed from others, but drawn from the depths of our own being. In modern life, the signs of this shift are everywhere. People at 60 begin to ask different questions. What truly matters? What brings peace? What is worth my time and energy now? The endless pursuit of possessions and status often gives way to simplicity, presence, and depth. Many discover the freedom to finally say no without guilt, to rest without shame, and to choose relationships, creativity, and inner peace over ambition. This is not the loss of drive, but the discovery of a higher drive, the drive to live aligned with the soul rather than ego. Spirituality emerges here not as an abstract concept, but as lived wisdom, guiding choices that honor authenticity, clarity, and peace. The very fatigue that once seemed like a burden becomes the proof of growth, a sign that the soul refuses to settle for the noise of the world when truth is calling from within. The journey from ego to soul does not erase the first half of life, but redeems it. Every challenge, every success, and every failure becomes raw material for transformation. Jung emphasized that wholeness, not perfection, is the true goal of maturity. And this stage of life invites us to gather all parts of ourselves into a deeper harmony. Shadows are not denied, strengths are not exaggerated, and wisdom is not borrowed but lived. At 60, spirituality is no longer an option. It becomes the compass. The soul no longer negotiates with masks or distractions. It insists on truth, and it insists on peace. What the world calls slowing down is in reality a sacred acceleration into meaning, clarity, and authenticity, where the light of wisdom finally outshines the demands of ego. 3. Integration of the past. At 60, life no longer demands that you chase after titles, cars, or recognition, because the focus shifts inward where the soul longs for something far greater: peace, silence, forgiveness, and the courage to face yourself without masks. This stage is not about regret, but about integration, a deep process of revisiting marriages, relationships, choices, and wounds, not to judge them, but to weave them into a meaningful whole. Every memory, whether joyful or painful, becomes part of the fabric of who you are, and spirituality begins to guide you away from ambition toward wholeness. The desire to impress others fades, and what rises in its place is the longing to heal, to forgive, and to rest in the truth of your own being. As you look back, you realize the past is not something to escape, but something to embrace. For every mistake has shaped your strength, every wound has opened a doorway to wisdom, and every broken dream has redirected you toward deeper truths. Old choices no longer carry the same weight of guilt or shame. Instead, they shine as teachers that refined your soul. Relationships once clouded with pain can now be seen through clearer eyes, revealing not only loss, but lessons that deepened your understanding of love and humanity. Integration allows you to gather these fragments and bring them home to the heart so that no part of your journey is wasted. Spiritual development at 60 teaches that forgiveness is no longer optional but essential. For without it, the soul remains divided. To forgive yourself is to free yourself, and to forgive others is to release the chains that bind both heart and memory. This is not weakness, but strength. The kind of strength that makes silence more powerful than words and stillness more healing than constant striving. In a world that glorifies youth and success, this stage whispers a liberating truth. Happiness is not found in what you achieve, but in what you accept, not in how much you acquire, but in how fully you embrace the life you have lived. Carl Jung reminded us that wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. At 60, this wisdom becomes alive, teaching that both light and shadow must be embraced, if you are to be whole. You no longer need to hide your scars, for they are part of your story, nor deny your failures, for they shaped your courage. Spirituality at this stage is about authenticity, living without pretense, walking without fear, and finding beauty in the truth of your own existence. In this sacred space of integration, you come to see that your past was never a burden, but a teacher leading you to the wholeness your soul has always longed for. Comment below. I honor my past and embrace my growth. If you are ready to integrate your life's journey and step into this new chapter of spiritual awakening. 4. Awakening of the inner self. At 60, life takes on a deeper rhythm, and what once appeared to be an ending reveals itself as a new beginning. The body may slow, the days may appear quieter, but inside the soul turns toward its truest essence. Carl Jung wisely said, "We cannot live the afternoon of life according to the program of life's morning." And it is here, in this sacred turning point, that the inner awakening begins. The need to prove yourself fades. The urge to compete loses its fire, and the fear of judgment weakens. You realize that the masks you wore and the roles you played no longer serve you, and the soul longs to be authentic, to live in alignment with its purest form. This transformation is not dramatic or sudden, but a quiet shift, like a compass slowly pointing you back to yourself. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole. And at 60, it arrives with clarity. No longer driven by endless ambition or the expectations of others, you begin to understand that true fulfillment lies not in accumulation, but in release. Spiritual wisdom unfolds like a hidden map, reminding you that the soul does not age. It only deepens, expands, and returns to the essence it has always carried. What once defined success numbers, recognition, approval, becomes less important. Instead, the measure of a life well lived is found in presence, in depth, in authenticity. Jung's words echo powerfully here. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. At 60, this awakening is unavoidable. You no longer chase the illusion of more. You savor the gift of what is. Every day becomes sacred, not because of how much it holds, but because of how fully you inhabit it. This is not retreat, but expansion. Aging is not decline, but refinement. The ego loosens its grip, and the soul rises in serenity. You forgive more easily, love more deeply, and allow your very presence to carry meaning. Life becomes about quality rather than quantity, truth rather than performance. In this stage, you see that the greatest treasures are not in what you own, but in who you become. At 60, you are not moving toward the end. You are awakening into wholeness, into freedom, into the timeless essence of the soul. 5. Embracing the shadow and forgotten parts. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." At 60, this truth becomes more visible than ever, because life begins to shift away from external pursuits and toward the forgotten parts of the soul. The reintegration of the shadow of those suppressed feelings, silenced intuitions, and neglected dreams emerges as an essential task. These hidden aspects, once pushed aside to meet society's demands, now resurface as possibilities, urging you toward study, creativity, or healing. The soul no longer obeys the world's clock, but instead listens to an inner call that cannot be ignored. This stage of life often reveals itself through subtle changes. The drive to impress others weakens, the need to prove oneself dissolves, and ambitions that once felt urgent lose their weight. What appears on the surface as slowing down is, in truth, a spiritual awakening, a reorientation of energy from outer striving to inner fulfillment. Spirituality at this point is no longer about belief alone, but about living with authenticity, guided by the intelligence of the spirit rather than the noise of external validation. Jung warned that when these whispers of the shadow are ignored, the result is stagnation, but when embraced, they become the seeds of renewal, creativity, and peace. Modern life can make this transition difficult, as it praises productivity and constant motion. Yet many people at 60 feel an undeniable shift. The corporate title or social status that once defined worth suddenly feels hollow compared to the joy of painting, writing, gardening, or mentoring. What might seem like a mere hobby is often the soul reclaiming the passions and callings that were sacrificed long ago. This is not regression, but completing the second half of life, asking for wholeness rather than ambition. It is the moment when spirituality moves from concept to lived experience, as the shadow reveals itself not as an enemy, but as a guide. These signals often arrive quietly. A restlessness when repeating old routines, a spark of joy when reconnecting with neglected passions, or a sense of clarity when sitting in silence, all point to the same truth. The soul is no longer content with artificial measures of success. It seeks alignment with timeless wisdom, urging you to step into authenticity. This inner voice may call you to forgive yourself for years of suppression, to create space for reflection, or to pursue a passion that once seemed impossible. To honor that voice is to allow the shadow to turn into light, to let spiritual awakening unfold as a natural part of life's design. At 60, the message is clear. You are not ending, but transforming. The journey shifts from chasing achievements to embracing wholeness, from proving yourself to finally living in truth. Spiritual wisdom teaches that the soul's intelligence knows when it is time to turn inward. And when you follow that call, you discover freedom beyond the limits of time, a peace that ambition could never provide, and a deeper awakening that carries you into the most authentic chapter of your life. 6. Freedom, beauty, and spiritual maturity. At 60, life begins to whisper a different song, one that invites you into a deeper state of spirituality and spiritual development. And this transformation often feels like a gentle unveiling of your truest self. Freedom becomes the essence of your days. You no longer feel the need to apologize for your choices, justify your existence, or chase validation from others. After decades of carrying roles, responsibilities, and silent burdens, you suddenly step into a new kind of liberation, one that is not about breaking rules, but about honoring your soul. This freedom is graceful, quiet, and powerful, and it is here that you finally realize your worth has never depended on the approval of the outside world, but has always resided within your authentic presence. True beauty begins to radiate in ways that no mirror could ever fully capture. It is no longer the fleeting charm of youthful appearance, but the lasting glow of wisdom, serenity, and depth. Beauty at this stage flows from the strength of your character, the gentleness of your spirit, and the calm authority of your lived experiences. It unsettles those who are still chasing surface illusions, because your authenticity reflects back to them what they have not yet dared to embrace. Carl Jung once reminded us that the privilege of a life. 7. Individuation and spiritual depth. At 60, individuation deepens in a way that feels less like striving and more like surrendering into your true self. You begin to reconcile with the wounds of your past, to forgive yourself and others, and to embrace both light and shadow as necessary parts of wholeness. The scars that once seemed like burdens now reveal themselves as marks of strength, proof that you have endured and transformed. Forgiveness loosens the chains of regret and resentment, and in that release, you reclaim energy that had been trapped for decades. Life no longer demands perfection. It calls for authenticity, for the courage to live honestly with all that you are. Spirituality at 60 is not a doctrine to memorize, but a lived experience that flows through presence, awareness, and peace. The frantic rush of earlier years softens, and time itself changes, meaning it is no longer measured by how fast you can move, but by how deeply you can dwell in each moment. Fear, which once ruled so many decisions, begins to fade like a shadow at dawn, and wisdom rises quietly in its place. This wisdom is not loud or demanding. It radiates naturally, like light breaking through the clouds. Carl Jung reminded us that knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. At 60, you embody this truth, carrying both gentleness and strength, becoming more compassionate, less reactive, and more at peace with life's contradictions. Intelligence at this stage is no longer about accumulation of facts or achievements. It becomes spiritual wisdom, a higher form of intelligence that integrates experience, failure, and joy into a deeper understanding of what it means to live. You realize the journey was never about competing or proving, but about awakening. Instead of constantly doing, you discover the freedom of simply being. It is not retirement from life, but a graduation into a richer way of living, where reflection holds more value than performance and authenticity outweighs ambition. In a world that idolizes speed and productivity, reaching 60 offers a sacred counterpoint. The realization that true richness is found not in endless activity, but in presence. By embracing both your strengths and vulnerabilities, you embody a spiritual awakening that quietly blesses everyone around you. You no longer inspire by striving, but by existing fully as yourself. Jung's words echo here. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. At 60, awakening is no longer an idea you chase. It becomes your lived reality, a quiet and luminous truth that turns ordinary days into moments of timeless depth. 8. Living in truth and wholeness. At this stage of life, the soul whispers more clearly, and the old demands of perfectionism, control, and rigid roles begin to lose their grip. The endless striving to meet expectations or prove worth feels unnecessary, as authenticity becomes the true measure of living. In this shift, the heart opens to creativity, not as a performance, but as a natural expression of being painting, writing, tending to the garden, or simply watching the sunrise becomes a spiritual practice. Solitude, once feared as emptiness, transforms into a sanctuary of freedom where the soul feels most alive and connected. Relationships evolve as well, no longer based on convenience or shallow approval, but on depth, nourishment, and resonance. People who cannot meet you in this space may fade away, while those who remain reflect your truest self back to you. The bonds you now cherish are the ones that honor presence, compassion, and genuine connection. This transition mirrors Jung's insight that the second half of life is not about climbing higher, but about descending inward, where the ego bows to the soul. The surrender of ego is not a defeat, but a victory of wisdom, a recognition that peace comes not from achievement, but from essence. In modern life, where noise, performance, and validation dominate, this transformation is radical. To step out of the race and into authenticity is to reclaim your energy and joy. Spiritual awakening here means choosing simplicity over complexity, presence over distraction, and truth over pretense. It is saying yes to what nourishes you and gently letting go of what no longer serves. Perfectionism is answered with the quiet knowledge that you are already whole, and the urge to control is softened by trust in life's unfolding. Living in truth and wholeness means discovering that freedom is not found in having more, but in being more. It is the gentle courage to live aligned with your soul, to find joy in the ordinary, to savor the silence as deeply as the laughter, and to let each day reflect who you really are without disguise. In this space, life is no longer measured by titles or possessions, but by the depth of presence and the authenticity of being, where the ego steps aside and the soul finally takes its rightful place at the center of existence. And so, as Carl Jung reminds us, reaching 60 is not just a number. It is a doorway to a deeper spiritual awakening, a time when the soul calls us to live with greater wisdom, purpose, and inner peace. If this message has touched your heart, I invite you to reflect on your own journey and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who may need this encouragement, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos filled with insight and inspiration. Carl Jung, 5 Types of Synchronicity and the Hidden Messages Behind Them. Carl Jung once said, "Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see." Think about how often you have experienced a moment so perfectly timed that it felt like the universe was sending you a message. In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we'll uncover the 5 types of synchronicity and the hidden messages behind them, and more importantly, how you can apply these principles in your daily life to invite growth, happiness, and deeper meaning. As you listen, reflect on your own experiences. Have you noticed signs or coincidences guiding your path? Share them in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else on their journey. 1. Warning, alert, synchronicity. Warning or alert synchronicities often arise before major life decisions or during periods of intense stress, serving as protective signals that guide us away from harmful choices or timelines. In the journey of spirituality and spiritual awakening, they appear as delays, setbacks, or unexpected obstacles that, while frustrating in the moment, later reveal themselves as hidden blessings. A house purchase that falls through may feel devastating, yet in time, we may discover that the property carried hidden problems or the neighborhood declined, proving that what felt like loss was actually divine protection. These synchronicities act as unseen guardians, redirecting us towards safer and more aligned paths, reminding us that not every door is meant to be opened. Instead of interpreting delays as failures, the spiritually awakened recognize them as messages, asking, what lesson is being offered here? What danger is being avoided? And what higher path am I being nudged toward? Carl Jung believed these moments were not accidents, but meaningful coincidences flowing from the unconscious, woven into the fabric of life by forces beyond logic. To those attuned to spiritual wisdom, they are proof that the universe operates with intention, offering subtle warnings through missed opportunities, canceled plans, or sudden disruptions. The challenge is to pause and listen, to resist frustration and trust that divine timing is always wiser than our own. A missed flight may prevent us from tragedy. A canceled meeting may save us from a toxic bond. An illness may force us to slow down and realign with what truly matters. Every obstacle carries meaning when seen through the lens of spiritual awakening, and every delay can be understood as a redirection toward growth, safety, and alignment. By embracing these warning synchronicities, we cultivate patience, humility, and deeper trust in life's unfolding, realizing that the universe is never against us, but always guiding us toward the path where we are meant to thrive. Comment below, I trust the warnings of synchronicity, if you are ready to recognize the hidden messages that life places on your path. 2. Confirmation synchronicity. Confirmation synchronicity is the universe's way of quietly affirming that your choices and direction are aligned with your deeper truth, a meaningful coincidence that Carl Jung described as far beyond chance. It often shows up as subtle yet powerful signs, like seeing the same number sequence after taking a step forward, crossing paths with someone who validates your decision, or hearing a song that echoes your innermost feelings at just the right time. These moments feel magical because they bypass the rational mind and reach directly into the soul, offering reassurance, clarity, and a sense of inner peace. Such synchronicities are not random. They are deeply personal reflections of your inner world, expressed through outer events, guiding your spirituality and spiritual development. They dissolve fear and bring confidence by reminding you that you are not walking alone, but are part of a greater design. While they do not make choices for you, they affirm when you are aligned with your authentic self, speaking a language so intimate that only your heart can fully recognize its meaning. To embrace these moments, slow down and pay attention to life's details. Trust the inner resonance when a sign brings you peace, and let these experiences serve as anchors of faith during times of doubt. Each confirmation synchronicity is an invitation to deepen your trust in the unfolding of your path, to connect your inner wisdom with the greater mystery of existence, and to move forward with courage, clarity, and a renewed sense of spiritual strength. 3. Prophetic synchronicity. Prophetic synchronicity is one of the most profound ways the universe speaks to you, showing up as repeating numbers, symbolic dreams, or sudden encounters that seem to predict what is yet to come. When you see 11:11 on the clock again and again, or dream of a situation that unfolds days later, it is not chance. It is the deeper intelligence of life guiding your steps. Carl Jung once said, "Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see," reminding us that these signs are not random, but messages filled with spiritual wisdom for those willing to pay attention. Through these moments, you are invited to look beyond logic and notice how your inner world connects with outer events. Numbers like 333 or 777 often act as confirmations that you are on the right path, while recurring dreams may carry warnings or blessings that prepare you for what lies ahead. Sometimes, even a stranger's casual words echo exactly what you needed to hear, serving as a prophecy in disguise. Each sign calls you to pause, reflect, and trust that life itself is in dialogue with you. Jung believed prophetic synchronicity was proof of the hidden unity between psyche and cosmos, where unconscious knowledge reveals itself through meaningful coincidence. That is why keeping track of these moments in a journal can sharpen your awareness. Only by tracing the patterns can you see how they align with your choices and destiny. As Jung taught, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Prophetic synchronicity is the unconscious breaking through, giving you the chance to shape fate with conscious choice. Yet these signs require balance. Not every number or symbol carries a message, and wisdom lies in discerning which moments are charged with true meaning. When a synchronicity resonates deeply and connects with your current path, honor it as guidance. When it feels empty, let it pass. By listening carefully without obsession, you train your intelligence to recognize genuine prophecy. Prophetic synchronicity can confirm a decision, caution you about hidden dangers, or reveal a new direction you had not considered. The sign itself may appear simple, but its impact can be life-changing, reminding you that you are never walking alone. In truth, every meaningful coincidence is the universe whispering that you are part of something greater. And the more you open your awareness, the clearer these whispers become. Leave your like and subscribe to our channel, and activate the notification bell so you never miss powerful insights like this. Keep walking in alignment with your destiny and type in the comments, "I am ready to embrace prophetic guidance in my life." 4. Manifestation synchronicity. Manifestation synchronicity reveals the mysterious bridge between thought and reality, showing how your inner world actively shapes the outer one. In spirituality and spiritual awakening, this is more than coincidence. It is the law of attraction at work. When your desires are clear and deeply felt, they radiate energy into the universe, drawing circumstances, opportunities, and signs that mirror your state of consciousness. Carl Jung believed psyche and matter are connected in ways beyond logic, and when they align meaningfully, we witness synchronicity as a natural expression of life's hidden order. Quantum physics supports this truth by suggesting that consciousness itself can influence outcomes across time, shifting not only the present, but even the past and future. The observer effect reveals that reality changes under the gaze of awareness, proving that your attention is not passive, but creative. This is why visualization, meditation, and affirmations hold such power. They do not merely comfort the mind, they imprint energy into the fabric of existence, preparing reality to meet you halfway. Everyday examples confirm this truth. You think of someone, and they suddenly call. You envision a goal, and a door opens unexpectedly. You align with your deepest intention, and life reflects it back in astonishing ways. These events are not random. They are confirmations that your inner and outer worlds are in constant dialogue. Spiritual awakening sharpens your ability to notice these patterns, reminding you that you are not a victim of chance, but an active participant in creation. The message within manifestation synchronicity is clear. Your thoughts are seeds, your emotions are water, and your reality is the harvest. What you focus on, consciously or unconsciously, will eventually show itself in your life. This is both an invitation and a responsibility, urging you to cultivate clarity, discipline, and faith in your inner vision. The more aligned you become with your authentic desires, the more effortlessly life responds, turning intention into experience and thought into matter. When you recognize this, synchronicity ceases to be a mystery and becomes a guide. It teaches you to trust the flow, refine your awareness, and step into the role of co-creator. Life is not happening outside of you, but through you. And manifestation synchronicity is the evidence that your inner world is inseparably woven into the universe's unfolding design. 5. Opportunity synchronicity. Opportunity synchronicity is the moment when life seems to arrange itself with perfect timing, offering you a chance that feels both surprising and inevitable, as if reality and destiny have conspired to open a new path. Carl Jung called synchronicity a meaningful coincidence, and in these moments, you feel an undeniable alignment between your inner state and the outer world. It may be a job offer appearing just when you are ready to grow, a relationship entering your life at the exact moment your heart could receive it, or a creative idea that solves the problem you had long been struggling with. Such opportunities do not come by force. They flow naturally, carrying a sense of relief, joy, and deep confirmation that you are on the right track in your spirituality and spiritual development. These synchronicities remind you that your life is not random, but connected to a larger design, urging you to trust that you are guided and supported in ways beyond logic. Sometimes the sign is subtle. A book that reaches you at the right moment. A stranger's words echoing the guidance you needed. A chance encounter that later proves to be transformative. Other times, it is bold and undeniable, shifting the entire direction of your life. What matters is not the scale of the event, but your ability to notice and respond. Many people dismiss these moments as coincidence, but those who recognize and act upon them discover that they are stepping into the rhythm of destiny itself. Opportunity. Synchronicity teaches that preparation and awareness open the door for grace. When you align inwardly with clarity, faith, and courage, the universe mirrors this readiness by aligning external events in your favor. Yet the gift must be embraced, for a missed opportunity fades, while one acted upon can alter the course of your journey. The hidden message is to remain awake, to see beyond chance, and to understand that these openings are signals of growth, guiding you toward a higher path. By honoring them, you not only move forward in life, but also deepen your trust in the mystery that connects all things. As we've seen, Synchronicity is far more than coincidence. It is a reminder that life carries hidden messages, guiding us toward greater awareness and alignment. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Carl Jung's insights into the mysterious patterns of life. If this video has inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming videos. Your journey into deeper meaning and spiritual growth continues here with us.